There's a lot of fill in the blanks in there as we get to what happens with sleep deprivation. And I think it would be wise of us to watch what's going on. And let's not throw stones at Job tonight. Remember what he's going through. Last chapter, he's speaking his mind. He's telling his friends, hey, you should have been here. You should have come to encourage me. When I saw you coming, it was like a brook, but then that brook just like went away. It was like a mirage or something. He said, verse 15, that you've dealt deceitfully as a brook. I thought you were coming to be refreshing, but you're not. You ended up being discouraging. He said, you should have come and you should have encouraged me. But you say that I sin. And Job said, hey, if I've done something wrong, please tell me. I'll be glad to get it right. And he continues this crying out. He told him, he said, hey, the donkey and the ox, they don't make noise if everything's okay. And he said, I'm crying out because something's not right in my life. Now, I'm not sure of how many days have transpired. We know at least 7 days have gone by. So we can say this could be the 8th day, this could be the 9th day. I really don't know. All we do know is that they sat with Job for 7 days and nobody said anything, and then they broke the silence. And so I know it's been at least 7 days, could be 8 days or even 9 days since Job was smitten with boils and since he's been sitting in ashes and sitting in the dunghill, really. And so I believe that this plays a part in how Job is feeling. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. So keep this in mind. How many days have gone by, about how many days have gone by as we get into this chapter, because Job is going to say a lot of things, and he's going to question God in this chapter, and he's going to wonder why God is doing certain things. And so let's dive in. Look at verse 1 through 16. The first thing I see is Job's exhaustion. Job is just tired. He's been there 7 days, maybe 8, maybe 9, not sure. But he's been there 7 days, at least with his friends. And now his friends have come to encourage him. They're no longer encouraging him. They're actually discouraging him. And Job says, is there not an appointed time to a man upon the earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hireling? As a servant earnestly desireth the shadow, and as a hireling looketh for the reward of his work. What Job is saying in these verses is Job is telling his friends of a hireling and a servant. He says even they get a break, right? They work, and this hireling will go out, and this hireling can go sit under the shadow, or the servant can go sit under the shadow. And at the end of that work week, not only have they had a break, but they get a what? They get a reward, right? Job has been 7 days, maybe 8 days now, sitting, and he's not getting rewarded for anything. He sees no break. He sees nothing happening to help him in this matter. And to make matters worse, his friends have come over and brought him down even lower. And so he's sitting there, and he said, hey, it's appointed to man upon earth where, hey, they can take a break, right? How many of you like break times, right? You're like, yes, lunch break. I remember working at FedEx. You'd have to try to get a break, because you're out there picking up deliveries and things like that. So you'd have to find a time where you could just stop and take a break. And some days, man, they just piled the deliveries and the pickups up on you, and you couldn't take a break. You couldn't take a lunch break. You couldn't stop for a moment. And you know how just wore out you could be, right? That's why they have laws that say you got to take a break. After so many hours, you got to take a break. And Job is saying, I wish that just for a moment I could get a break. Just for a moment, I could see some benefit to what I'm going through. So I find that interesting. And I know how many of you have ever felt like Job is feeling. I wish that I could have a break from all the bad stuff going on, right? You ever just saw somebody and they're just going through a whole bunch of stuff, and you wish, even to yourself, you say, man, I wish they could just catch a break. I just wish that everything didn't happen to them at one time. So let's face it, we all have problems, and sometimes those problems are all we can focus on, right? They just overwhelm us, and that is what our life is. And it seems that if we focus on them, we never get a break from those problems. There's never a reward. Only bad things seem to be happening. That's how Job's feeling. He says the hireling has something to look forward because he can go really sit under the shadow of the tree there. The servant can go sit in the shadow. They can take a breather from the hot sun, from working out there. They get a reward at the end of their week. And Job, what does he have to look forward to? Nothing. He has no shadow. He has no reprieve to look forward to. And so Job is feeling as if he's destined to be where he is for the remainder of his life, which he thinks he's about to die. He thinks that any moment now he's going to breathe his last breath and everything's going to be okay. And so he is feeling defeated. He's feeling discouraged. He goes on to say in verse number 3, so I am made to possess months of vanity. I don't get a break. There's been months of vanity, uselessness. My life has no point. Wearisome nights are appointed to me. What kind of nights? Wearisome, tiring nights. That's where Job's at. He is at the place where he doesn't sleep much. Listen, verse 4. When I lie down, I say, when shall I rise? You ever had that problem? You're like, you go lay down. You're like, I can't wait till morning gets here. Morning gets here. I can't wait till night gets here, right? Anybody ever been there? That's where Job's at. Job's like, man, I cannot wait to go to bed. He goes to bed. He's like, okay, I cannot sleep. I cannot wake until it's morning. You ever been woke up like 4 o'clock in the morning and wish that it was 6 o'clock in the morning? I know, Gary, you go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, so you up there in heaven. But anybody else, though, you usually don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you can't go back to sleep and you're wishing, man, I just wish the sun would come up. Job's like that. It's miserable. He goes to sleep. He wishes it was morning, and then the night be gone. And I'm full of tossings to and fro until the dawning of the day. I go to bed, and I toss and turn. I'm in pain. I'm miserable. He probably has a fever of some sort that went with the boils. Listen to what verse 5. This is graphic. He says, my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and has become loathsome. It's not very good. It's not a very good picture. And I don't even want to paint that picture for you of what's transpiring. Basically, what we could say is when Job goes to bed and when Job arises, worms are literally eating his body. Now, that's a miserable place to be. How many of you think you could get a good night's rest with that happening? No, nobody can, right? So Job goes to bed just hoping that he can get some kind of sleep. He realizes in verse 6 that his days are very, very numbered. Now, I want you to know what happens when you and I do not get the proper sleep. When we are faced with sleep deprivations, what can happen to us? According to a website, clova.com, here are some side effects of sleep deprivation. Now, I've put some blanks in there because I want you to really pay attention here. After one night of shortened sleep, you will incur some minor brain damage. That makes me think of all the all-nighters I did as a youth pastor. Man, how many brain cells have I killed just staying up night, depriving myself of sleep, right? So just after one night of shortened sleep, you can incur some minor brain damage. Your immune system will begin to turn against you, all right? So nothing's working right. Your insulin sensitivity will be a similar degree as if you have been on a high-fat diet for 6 months. That's one night of sleep deprivation. You'll be a bit dumbed down. You ain't got a clue what's going on, right? You ever woke up in a fog and didn't even know where you were at? You're like, what in the world? Oh, it's Monday. I've woke up before. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's Tuesday. Or wait a minute, it's Sunday, right? Oh, I got to preach today. I'm just kidding. I've never been like that. But I have woke up and been in fogs, and I have had to just think about it for a minute. What day is it? Right? Anybody been there? Just because maybe I didn't sleep well that night. So you become a bit more dumbed down. It becomes harder to think. It becomes harder to focus, to remember, and to multitask. Cognitive performances are affected by sleep loss as well. And then after one night of sleep, will you believe that you will become more or less likable, that people don't want to be around you, right? How many of you can agree with that? If somebody you know doesn't have the sleep that they need, you don't want to be around that person. Why? Because they're grouchy. All right, so how many days have Job not slept? Well, it's been more than one, right? We can assume there's been more than one. After a week of sleep deprivation, here's what's going to happen to your body or could happen to your body. You will be 4 times more likely to catch a cold. Okay? Your immune system's attacking you, it's not working for you. You could even pack on a couple of pounds. So the best diet that you can have is sleep, right? Do you know you burn calories during sleep? Did y'all know that? I'm amazed. Like, you got resting calories, and you're actually burning calories by snoring and sawing logs, right? You're burning those calories. Continue. If you have a week of sleep deprivation, you will have the cognitive function of a drunk, okay? Now, we can assume safely, I think, that it's been at least a week since Job has had some quality sleep. Boils all over his body, and he is saying, I toss to and fro, and I wait for day to come. I cannot sleep. Life is miserable. And so he's probably acting, and his cognitive function is one of a drunk. You'll be more likely to do something you might regret on less sleep. I think we can all agree with that one. Your blood sugar levels will be so out of control or out of whack that you could be classified as a pre-diabetic. Now, if you continue sleep deprivation in your life for long term, you're just like, well, I just don't want to get sleep, you can become 73% more prone to injuries, right? That number increases 73% if you just do not get enough sleep. You will age faster. Hey, you know what the secret to not aging so fast? Get some sleep, right? Get some sleep. You'll have an impaired intellect, right? You ain't got a clue what's going on, right? You cannot think of things. You can't put things together. What you used to think very simply, you cannot do anymore. You'll be more likely to develop a mood disorder, right? After so many days of not sleeping, you're probably going to be a bit cranky or anxious or depressed. How many of you, do you see some of these things in the life of Job right now? He's become a little bit cranky, right? He's becoming a little bit sharp and saying what he needs to say. Your risk for dementia also increases if you have long-term sleep deprivation. You will be at least 50% more likely to have a stroke after sleep deprivation. So what I'm telling you is this, and this is free. You need sleep. God designed our bodies to go to bed and to get rest. Now that rest, it may change over years, and you may not need as much rest as you used to, but God designed our bodies to shut down and to rest. And if we don't do that, we can have problems. Did you see any of these symptoms in Job? Do you see any of these symptoms in your own life? Have you become cranky? Have you become that person that nobody likes, or impaired intellect, or you have the cognitive function of a drunk? Go home and get some sleep tonight, okay? So Job is at a place where he hasn't slept in days. We see that because he says, when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise? When's morning coming? He tosses to and fro until the dawning of the day. His flesh is just clothed with just nasty stuff. In verse 6, he realizes this, and this is something the Bible teaches. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle and are spent without hope. In other words, what Job is going through right now seemingly seems to go for a long time. He alludes to that later on. Well, what Job is talking about right now, not his condition that he's going through right now, but his life as a whole seems to just passed on by. How many of you could say that right now? Your life is just like, man, it just zoomed by. When you were 16, you thought you would never get to 21, right? Now, after you hit all those milestones, you're like, man, time needs to slow down. Time needs to slow down, and it just keeps going faster and faster and faster. When Job looks at his life, he says, my life has been spent without hope. What point was there? Verse 7, oh, remember that my life is wind. You know, James says that our life is a vapor. It is here for a little while and vanisheth away. Mine eyes shall see no more good. In other words, my life has come to an end, and it's come to an end very quickly, and now there's nothing good for me in the future. That's where Job's at. He's at the point where he's saying, listen, there's nothing that is worth living for anymore. Job looks at his present condition. It hasn't gone by quickly, but his whole life has just been a blur, and now he's at the end of his life, so he thinks. But chapter 42, I think, says, hey, that God's going to do something else in Job's life. Job doesn't know that, though. Verse 9, as the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away, so he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. He shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him anymore. In other words, when you're gone, nobody else knows about it. You're forgotten. What is my life? What is my purpose? What good do I have to look forward to? You ever known anybody that's been so low that they've asked that question? What good have I to look forward to? Nothing good is happening in my life. Everything's bad, and I'm at the end of my life, so he thinks, and nothing is good to look forward to. Look at verse 11. Therefore. Now, what's the therefore? Therefore. Because of what I said, because of what I've gone through, because my life is a vapor, because I'm not going to be around forever, it's been a blur, I will not refrain my mouth. Because I could die today, here's what I'm going to tell you. He said, I'm going to speak the truth. I'm just going to speak the truth. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. You get the message? He's saying, listen, my life is almost over. I have nothing good to look forward to, so I'm just going to tell you how it is, right? I'm just going to be blunt in what I say. I'm going to complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a well that thou settest to watch over me? Now, he's taken his conversation and he's pushed it upward now. He's talking to God, okay? So he's going to God, and he's speaking to God, and he's speaking to God pretty boldly. He's basically saying, God, I'm angry, I'm bitter, there's nothing good to look forward to. Why is this happening to me? And he goes, am I a sea or am I a well? Am I something that can just be caged in? Or a whale, is not a human being. A whale maybe not will garner the attention from God that you and I would in Job's mind. But God, we know that God sees the little sparrow when he falls. So all the animals are important to God. Humans are important, but God has a unique relationship with human beings, not the animals. He knows what the animals are doing. So Job feels like if I could just be a whale where you don't have to watch me. Now listen to what he's saying. He's basically going to be telling God, and he does tell God, leave me alone, take your hands off of me, let me die. But you're not doing that. No, you got a constant watch over me. You know my every move. You know what I'm doing. He said, God, just take your hands off of me and let me die. That's pretty bold of Job. He says, when I say my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint. When he says, I'm going to bed and I'm trying to get some rest, here's what he blames God. Here's what he said God does to him. Then thou scarest me, verse 14, with dreams and terrifiest me through visions, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my life. I loathe it or I hate it. I would not live always. Let me alone, for my days are vanity and useless. God, why are you so interested in me? Take your hands off of me and let me die. He wrongly accuses God of bringing those dreams to him. Job says, hey, if I was a whale, you wouldn't be so interested in me. But I try to go to sleep. I try to just get a little nap, and I'm awakened out of my nap by terrible dreams. Now, why do you think he's having terrible dreams? His body is in pain. He's sick. He's probably got a fever. And sometimes if you get a high enough fever, you can hallucinate. You can have problems with that. And it's just not a good situation. Job is in a mess. And now he's asking God to basically saying, leave me alone. I have nothing good to look forward to, so let me die. It's a sad place to be. Verse 17, we see that Job not only is exhausted, but Job's examination right now. Job is examining really God. And he asks, and this may sound familiar because you'll see it in Psalm 8, David says these words, and Job probably wrote them first. What is man that thou shouldest magnify him, thou shouldest set thine heart upon him? Why are you, God, so interested in men, in human beings? Why do you take the time to just know us? And thou, verse 18, that thou shouldest visit him every morning and try him every moment. Something's happened here in Job's life. Beforehand, Job didn't understand why this stuff was coming in his life. So Job is examining his life, and he wonders why he's getting all the attention from God. The wording in Job 7:17, similar to Psalm 8, it says, "What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him?" And he talks about how God's made man a little lower than the angels. And so this is the wrong attitude of Job. But verse 18, he realizes something. I want to notice you catch it. It's at the end of the verse, and notice what Job says. He says, go back to the beginning of the verse, that thou shouldest visit him every morning, and what's the next word? Try. That word's test. So who is Job saying? And Job knows that God's going to do this, and things come like this from God. He's finally realized that God is testing him. Not so much testing him, but he's wanting to really just show him for his honor and his glory, for God's honor and glory. We don't know when it was revealed to him, but Job is asking God why he is testing him. How long? Every moment of my life, right? You ever felt that way? God just like test after test after test after test, and God's staying silent through all this. God's not going to Job and say, "Job, you're going through this because me and the devil had a conversation. You're going through this because I know you can handle it." He's not having a conversation with God. He's trying to, but God's not answering back. And you're going to see that later on. And I've often said this, during the test, the teacher always remains silent, right? You ever been in school? And where does the teacher usually sit up there during a test? At her desk, right? So quiet, right? So quiet, then your stomach growls, everybody hears it, right? Because it's so quiet during that testing time. The teacher always remains silent during the testing. So God is being silent right now, and Job feels that God is constantly putting things in his life to the point where he can't even stop for a moment to swallow his spit, right? That's how bad off he is. In verse 19, "How long wilt thou not depart from me, nor let me alone, till I swallow down my spittle?" Job says, it is so hard. My life is so tough. Everything I'm going through, God, take your hands off of me just for a moment so that I can, and everybody swallow with me, swallow. Job said, I'm in so much pain and in so much misery that it just kills me to even swallow. I can't even swallow, God. Would you just leave me alone for a moment? Take your hands off of me for a moment so I can have some kind of reprieve. Now, this is not a right attitude, but I believe Job is facing all these things because his mind is not where it needs to be. Why is his mind not where it needs to be? He is sleep deprived. Okay? And so he is a very weak person, and the devil can get in there and plant all kinds of doubt in Job's mind. Job's not coming out and cursing God, but Job's asking God. His request in the last chapter, let me die. That request is continuing. God, take your hand off of me, just let me die. He said, just let me have a break so I can swallow. Verse 20, you see something interesting. It's almost like he takes the advice of Eliphaz, and he confesses his sin. Now, let's reiterate. Did Job sin? Maybe in what he just said, I don't know. But there was no sin that brought on this to Job's life. And so Job now says, I have sinned. But Job didn't get specific about what sin. Job was just trying to say, God, okay, I sinned. Okay, fine, I sinned. Forgive me of my sin. Now, that's not the right kind of way to say I'm sorry, is it? You don't want somebody to say, I'm sorry if I did this, right? When if my kids come up to me, I'm sorry if I made you mad. That's not an apology. That's saying, I'm sorry you're in a mess. I'm sorry you had a problem with me getting upset, right? That's not an apology. An apology is, I'm sorry that I did this. And so Job is saying, I've sinned. Okay, I'm sorry. What shall I do unto thee? O thou preserver of men. He knows who holds men's lives in their hand. Why hast thou set me as a mark against thee? Why do you have me in your radar? Why am I the product and the point of all this suffering? Why is your mark against me? So that I am a burden to myself. He said, why are you doing this to me? So, to the point where I don't even know what's going on in my life. Verse 21, and why dost thou not pardon my transgression? That's where Job's wrong. Job didn't do anything wrong for this to come about. And so he's thinking, well, if God would forgive my sin, then my problems would go away. Right? And that's not what's happening. Job's not in this situation because God is mad at him for doing some sin. Job is in this position because of his character. And God is saying Job can handle it. And so God's allowing him to go through it. And so Job thinks, man, okay, I got to escape this pain, so I'm just going to say I'm sorry. Job wanted really to escape God in his pain by going to the grave. His beliefs of the afterlife were incomplete, all right? He didn't know the full picture. He thought that and many people still believe this, that you'd go into soul sleep, and one day that soul would be resurrected. And we know that the soul, when you die in this body, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, Paul says. So we know that we go to heaven or the other place, hell, if we don't know Jesus Christ. So he doesn't have that belief, and he's thinking, if I could die, then I can have reprieve from all of this. He said, okay, God, fine, I sinned. Please, please, please forgive me and take away this self. He said, I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I'm a burden to myself. I don't understand all these things going on. You haven't pardoned my transgression. You haven't taken away my iniquity. Now I shall sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be. He said, you're going to look for me, and I'm not going to be here. I'm escaping everything, right? He thought his life was about to end. Anderson says this about Job. All Job has known about God, he still believes. But God's inexplicable ways has his mind perplexed to the breaking point. And if you try to understand God's ways, your mind and my mind will be just as perplexed as Job's was. Job is in the right, but he does not know that God's watching with silent compassion and admiration until the test is fully done and it is time to state his approval publicly, which he does in Job 42, verse 8. God will state, yes, Job, you went through all this, and here's why. Here's why. You ever been so low you just didn't know where to go? Job is there. But I believe a lot of what Job is facing, a lot of the struggles he's facing, is a result of his mind not being sharp. So what can we learn from this? Go home, get some sleep. Take melatonin if you have to, all right? I used to take melatonin every day, 10 micrograms or milligrams or whatever it is, MCGs or whatever it is. Anyway, I used to take those right before I go to bed, and especially when I was on the road with FedEx, I would take that and I'd go right to sleep, and I was out. Put earplugs in your ear if you need to put earplugs in your ear. You may not hear anything, but hey, that's okay. You're going to get sleep. There's importance in sleep, and don't neglect that, because there's value in a good night's rest. Job, he's in a place I think we'd all be in. I don't think you and I would be getting much sleep in Job's position either. Worms all over your body, boils all over your body, just everything just going wrong, and we wouldn't be sleeping well. We might be getting cranky as well. We might be saying, okay, when is the end going to get here? I'm so tired of this life, right? Listen, we're going to go through bad times, but don't give up on God, okay? Has God made a mistake? No. God knows exactly what he's doing in Job's life. And Job's going to understand that one day. I wish that when we go through things that God would just reveal why we're going through it at that moment, but that's not what God does. So if you're going through a struggle tonight, a hard time in your life, know that God has you going through it for a specific purpose. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. It's all going to work out for maybe not your good right now, maybe bad right now, but God can take that bad and put it into something good. So just trust his plan. And I know that God makes no mistakes. And let's just trust him, whatever he has us facing, okay? Let's pray, and we'll get you out of here. Heavenly Father, Lord, I pray that you would help us to trust you more. Sometimes, Lord, we don't understand why we go